Why accounting? In this video, we're going to talk about Warren Buffett. We're going to talk about me. We're going to talk about Andy Dufrane, Al Capone, and why people don't look at the numbers. We'll conclude with why God is not an accountant. Don't take my word for it. Warren Buffett was once asked, what should I focus on in school? What should I focus on in class? And he was asked by someone that had been part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. They were able to talk to him, and this is what his response was.
Tell Mr. Buffett what you plan to study when you enroll in community college later this year, and I'd like to get Mr. Buffett's reaction as to whether that sounds good to him or not.
Well, I plan to cross-major in econ and finance. You know, the two degrees are only a couple classes off of each other, and to get both is even better.
Yeah, and Trey, the one thing I'd recommend is you take all the accounting courses that you can find. You know, accounting is the language of business, and there's nothing like, you know, getting it early and sort of getting it into your system. So whenever you get a chance to take an accounting course, jump on it, and it'll make it so much easier, you know, for years and years to come in reading financial statements, to get comfortable with it, because it is a language all of its own, and getting comfortable in a foreign language in effect takes a little experience, a little study early on, but it pays off.
Take all the accounting classes you can. That's what he said. So this might be your first and your last, but at least you're in line with Warren Buffett on taking this class. Okay, a little bit about me. I'm a father of 5. I worked at Stanford Endowment for about 3 years. I worked at Standard & Poor's for 2 years. I went on a mission to Detroit, Michigan for 2 years. I graduated with my doctorate from Harvard Business School, and GW is my first placement teaching out of school. And I've been teaching here for the past 5 years. I have a master's and a BS in accounting from Brigham Young University. This is a picture, this is a picture of my graduation, and it kind of just depicts exactly what being a doctoral student with kids is. You'll notice I'm here talking to the dean, and this is my wife, and then this is me in my robe, and you'll notice my daughter hiding under my robe as I talk to the dean, tickling my back and hanging out with me. This is my daughter Rowan hanging out here. But this is just the epitome of what it's like being a doctoral student with kids. And so this is actually a picture that we took in Boston. It's a cranberry bog. I highly recommend going to one. We have only 3 kids in this picture, but we currently have Quentin here. And then this is another one, Colin, another photo of Colin. So just to be clear, becoming an accountant was not a childhood dream of mine. You'll notice that frequently accountants are often depicted with kind of quirky backgrounds. There's the accountant from Ghostbusters is a very salient one, where he's kind of this weird guy that stumbles around and, you know, ends up becoming a dog. And then there's, you know, Will Ferrell plays an accountant twice, and he's a quirky accountant. And then there's always The Office, you know. And so these characters don't end up being like what I was thinking of when I was looking at this degree, when I was figuring out what accounting was. This is not what I thought of. This is what other people think, but this is not what I thought of. What I realized when I was looking into accounting, it reminded me of a couple of my favorite movies. First is Andy Dufrane from Shawshank Redemption. Andy is somebody that gets convicted for a crime he did not commit and ends up going to prison. And this is a scene from the movie, and I'll try to clip it up a little bit. But in this scene, Andy uses his knowledge of accounting and his understanding of financial reporting and accounting to basically give some insight to the guard. And it's the start of a process where he finally figures out what he can do in the prison. He starts helping out other people and other guards with their financial account, with their accounting and managing their personal finances.
35,000. That's what he left me.
Dollars?
Yep.
That's great. That's like winning the sweepstakes. Isn't it?
Just want a slice. Andy, you nuts? Keep on your mouth, man.
So that's Andy Dufrane right there.
You're going to pay some taxes, but you'll still end up with...
Oh, yeah. Maybe enough to buy a new car, and then what? The man never gets a break. That's the thing. You said rich kid himself, Joe. Keep talking.
No.
Some brother.
They're tarring.
Hey!
Mr. Hadley, do you trust your wife? What I mean is, do you think she'd go behind your back, try to hamstring you?
That's it. Step aside, Mert. This fucker trucker's having himself an accident.
You don't push him off the roof. Because if you do trucker, there's no reason you can't keep that 35,000.
What did you say?
35,000.
35,000?
All of it.
All of it?
Every penny.
You better start making sense.
If you want to keep all that money, give it to your wife. The IRS allows a one-time only gift to your spouse for up to $60,000.
Oh, tax-free?
Tax-free. You do need someone to set up the tax-free gift for you, and that'll cost you. I suppose I could set it up for you. That would save you some money. If you get the forms, I'll prepare them for you. I only ask 3 beers apiece for each of my co-workers.
Co-workers, get him. That's rich, ain't it?
I think a man working outdoors feels more like a man if you can have a bottle of suds.
And that's how it came to pass, that on the second to last day of the job, the convict crew that tarred the plate factory roof in the spring of '49 wound up sitting in a row at 10 o'clock in the morning, drinking icy cold Bohemia-style beer, courtesy of the hardest screw that ever walked a turn at Shawshank State Prison. We sat and drank with the sun on. Hell, we could have been tarring the roof of one of our own houses. We were the lords of all creation.
So why did I get into accounting? I wanted to learn something that was useful. Not that I was planning on being in prison at some point in the future in my life. Instead, I basically was trying to figure out, how I could be useful and learn a skill that would help in a future vocation. And it seemed like this knowledge was incredibly useful. The next one is Oscar Wallace. Oscar Wallace is a character from the Untouchables. It's based on the real life account of Frank Wilson. Frank Wilson was an accountant that worked on the group that took down Al Capone. The movie Untouchables is a great movie, and it goes through the process of how this murderous, racketeering, horrible guy, Al Capone, ended up being put in prison through accounting. Accountants basically looked at the numbers and figured out a way that they could get him. They couldn't get him on murder. They couldn't get him on bribery. They couldn't get him on all these other things, but they could get him on tax evasion. And that's how they nailed him. This is a scene from the movie where they're interrogating. They've captured Al Capone, one of Al Capone's accountants, and they have a general ledger. And what's happened is they've done this raid, and there's a guy that's dead outside. He's already dead as a doornail. And Sean Connery and Kevin Costner know he's dead, but nobody else in the room does. Nobody else knows that there's a body outside that is already dead, except for Sean Connery and Kevin Costner. So they're interrogating this guy, and they try to get this information.
But you got a heading here, circuit court? You got a heading here, circuit court? What is this?
Nothing. It's nothing
It's
you can
nothing?
make out of it.
What is this?
If we can establish that any of these coded entries indicate payment to Capone, then we can put Capone away.
That's a general
I want you
ledger.
to tell us which one of these entries is Al Capone's.
It's A. Costa. Is that your code name for Capone?
You're going to do the whole thing in the joint unless you help us here, pal.
I want you to translate
That's
this
the
ledger for
accountant.
us.
In hell. In hell? Mucking with a G here, pal. You're going to hang higher than him unless you cooperate.
This man can finger Al Capone. This man could put Capone behind
Why
bars.
don't you guys just off?
All right, we had to edit some profanity.
With you, Mr. Hardcase, we have to have that information one way or another.
Not that way.
You're going to talk, eh?
Out.
I'm going to be begging to talk, but somebody's going to talk.
Dirty son of a...
So good.
Enough out of you.
Hey, come on, you. On your feet. I need you to help me to translate this book.
That's the dead guy. This is the guy that's
I'm
dead.
not going to ask you a second time. I'm going to count
So
to
him
3.
and Kevin Costner know he's dead.
Oh, what's
He's
the
already
matter?
dead.
Can't you talk with a gun in your mouth? 1.
These other 3 don't know that this guy's already dead.
2.
I'm going to don't. I'm going to tell you whatever you want. What do you want to know?
So
Don't let him
brilliant.
clean himself till after he talks. Now, ask him what you want to know.
All right. Okay, I want to know the name of the bookkeeper. I want a complete translation of the code. I want complete information. Mr. Ness!
This is great. This is best. Great line.
You're not to approve of your methods.
Yeah? Well, you're not from Chicago.
has to be one of the best scenes from a movie ever. Love that scene. They get the accountant, and the way they get Al Capone is based on tax evasion. It was really hard to finger him for the murders. It was really hard to finger him for bringing liquor inside the United States during Prohibition. But they got Al Capone not for any of the massive crimes that are the most heinous, but they got him for tax evasion. And it was because of the accountants. The accountants were able to nail him, and the accounting team of the Untouchables did it. And here's a powerful mobster, and accountants were able to bring him down. Then if you look at The Big Short, The Big Short has a great explanation for why accounting is missed.
It's only a matter of time before someone else.
This video is a great explanation of what Michael Burry did.
Sees this investment. We have to act now.
How do you know the bonds are worthless? Aren't they filled with thousands of
Pages of mortgages?
I read them.
You read them?
I read, yeah.
no one reads them. Only the lawyers who put them together read them.
I don't think that they even know what they've made. The housing market is propped up on these bad loans. It's a time bomb, and I want to short it.
Through what instrument, Michael? There are no insurance contracts.
People
Here it is.
want an authority to tell them how to value things, but they choose this authority not based on facts or results. They choose it because it seems authoritative and familiar.
Basically, Michael Burry discovered the crisis by paying attention and looking at numbers that typically turn brains off. There's going to be a lot of things we talk about in this class that might turn your brain off. My job is to try to turn your brain on with it. But looking at how things work and the details associated with financial reporting is critical for understanding what's going on and becoming familiar with it and determining what happens. All right, and if you look at it, accounting is fairly important based on crises. It's something that's forgotten about until a crisis happens. And it's hard to think of any material event in world markets where accounting was not at the core of the issue. One exception, COVID-19. That's a big one, that accounting wasn't at the core of that issue. But if you think about the accounting scandal with Enron and WorldCom capitalizing expenses, Lehman Brothers, that was at the start of the crisis and the downfall, and with Repo 105. And if you look at what happened in the 2000 crash, it was because people, when the dot-com bubble was happening, it's because people weren't paying attention to accounting. They were doing clicks and views as opposed to the accounting that was happening with the businesses. So what caused the crash? Ignoring the accounting for loans. Accounting matters. I love it. It's a great topic, and I think you'll really enjoy studying it in this class.